Let's spill some more tea about the Harem conspiracy. Specifically, let's look at Ramses III's mummy and how the evidence from the mummy supports everything that is said in the Judicial Papyrus of Turin. We will be looking at images of mummified human remains, so if you do not want to see that, please scroll on. This is the mummy of Ramses III, and it was found in the Deir al-Bahri cache, or the royal cache, that is essentially a collection of over 50 ancient Egyptian mummies of pharaohs, queens, and the royal family from the New Kingdom, pretty much anywhere from the 17th dynasty to the 20th dynasty. And there are some big names in that cache, and I can talk about tons of them if you want to hear more. Many of the mummies from the Deir al-Bahri cache were unwrapped by early Egyptologists, which is no longer a practice now, pretty much out of respect for the human being that is this mummy, as well as preservation reasons. We're very lucky that the mummy of Ramses III wasn't really unwrapped. Most of this was probably done by the original looters, who essentially looted all of the tombs in the Valley of the Kings and the Valley of the Queens, which is why priests in the Third Intermediate period went into these tombs, gathered the mummies, and put them in the Deir al-Bahri cache to try to kind of save them and save them in the afterlife as well. One of the interesting things that has always been a curiosity about Ramses III is that because he was not unwrapped, it is not obvious how he died. There's no open wounds, there's nothing there that Egyptologists would be able to really see with their naked eye. And so in 2011 and 2012, there were CT investigations on a ton of different ancient Egyptian pharaohs' mummies, but Ramses III was kind of that big mystery, especially because by that time, the Judicial Papyrus of Turin had been translated. It is known that he was assassinated, and so people wanted to see, was there any evidence on his body himself? And the thing that always intrigued Egyptologists was, why was there so much bandaging around his neck? And the CT scans, well, they tell all. The CT scans essentially show us that there was a deep cut to the throat that went straight back and almost hit his vertebra, which essentially would have severed the trachea and the esophagus and many different blood vessels, and it essentially would have been rapidly fatal. It definitely proves that Ramses III probably did not survive until the trial of his conspirators and probably died very shortly after. In addition, they also saw that the mummification resins and the different materials had actually kind of stuffed themselves inside of the wounds, which definitely prove that the wounds happened before mummification. And this wasn't just simply unfortunately, damage during mummification or damage afterwards by looters, because mummified bodies are very fragile and sometimes the heads do break off very easily. They also found this little piece, and it's hard to see with the CT rendering, but this is definitely an Eye of Horus amulet. And this was placed on the throat, essentially underneath all of those bandages, probably by the mummification priest to essentially put Ramses III back together so that he would be whole for the afterlife. In a very weird addition, it also appears that one of Ramses III's toes had been severed by a sharp object. And this slightly does prove that he was essentially ganged up by multiple conspirators who were attacking him at multiple angles. And one of them was able to actually cut off one of his toes. And in addition, just like with the throat, the mummification priest put tons and tons of amulets around his feet and wrapped them very tightly to essentially try to put him back together for the afterlife.